Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another exciting edition of Free Advice Friday. I want to apologize just before we get started here for last week. I know that everybody was looking forward to the live Q&A with Cliff Salmon, and we were going to talk automotive. Unfortunately, Cliff had to back out of that for a medical reason. Totally legitimate, totally valid, but he's doing okay. We are going to reschedule. So that one will happen again at some point, but today we are talking websites with Nadine Charleson of Center Stage Design. Uh, you reached out to me to be a part of the 12 voiceover gifts of Christmas, and I think that was really the first connection that we had ever had with each other. And so I started looking through your website and looking at some of the stuff that you were doing. I was like, hey, this is somebody that knows what she's talking about. I should have her on Free Advice Friday. So welcome, and I'm looking forward to picking your brain for a little while and talking all about website and design.
Yeah, thanks. My pleasure. I'm thrilled to be here. Like if you'd told me a year ago, I never would have thought it. I remember last year, so I've been doing a voiceover for about 2.5 years. I kind of started getting into it right before the pandemic.
Okay.
Uh, and then I've been an actor forever. And then just like tinkering, making my own websites. But I've always been super techie. And I did Photoshop and all those sorts of things in high school. And then doing voiceover, I was like, oh, a lot of people have really bad websites. And I was like, I could probably make some okay websites. So I
Yeah.
started doing it and it just kind of snowballed. But last year I saw your Christmas giveaway thing and I was like, I'm going to do that next year.
Right on.
So I've only been doing this for a little over a year now, but I was so happy to be a part of your Christmas thing and this now. And yeah, I think the voiceover community is really one of like the most generous and giving and wonderful communities. So I just feel so lucky to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
I taught myself how to hand code HTML. I want to say it was probably 1996 maybe.
Yep.
And I was working at a radio station, and they didn't have a website. I mean, at that point hardly anybody had a website, but they were like, "Oh, let's we need to get a website." I'm like, "Oh, I can figure that out. No problem." I'm like, stupid 18-year-old kid. I know everything. And so I
Hmm.
taught myself how to hand code HTML, which was a nightmare back in the day because you had to code one way for Netscape and you had to code another way for Internet Explorer, and no, even though HTML was supposed to be a universal language, the way that the browsers read it was totally different. It was complete
Yep.
frustration. Totally dating myself now, making myself
There's
sound.
still, honestly, actually, you'd be surprised. There's still a lot of that. Like, I'm surprised at how ununiversal people's online experience is.
Yeah.
So, like, definitely the type of browser you use, the device you're using, whatever software you're on, it's a whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
uh, I remember those days vividly. Now we have Wix and Squarespace and WordPress and all of these drag and drop things that are supposed to make life so much easier in order to build our own websites. But so for those of you watching, if you've got a question that you would like to ask about website design, what goes into my website, what kind of content do I need, anything like that, feel free to type your question into the comments. Just put a Q beside it so it'll pop out on my in the comments there, and I'll be able to find it. But let's start with talking about what are some of the most common mistakes that you see voice actors making who are designing their own website. Oh, I can already tell you're like, all right, you got an hour. I'm just gonna sit
Yeah.
back and
Yeah. All right. Where's the rum? Oh god, my camera. Okay. So I mean, this is such a small thing, but it always for me is just an automatic like uh red flag of someone's DIY their website. There's two things. One is if they don't have a custom favicon.
okay,
And so what a favicon is in your browser window. Like if people look up in the top corner, you've probably got a little like YouTube logo next to the YouTube thing or Facebook or whatever. That little icon next to the title of the web page in that browser tab, that's a favicon.
yep,
And Squarespace, Wix, WordPress, they all have their own like default one that comes with your site. And for Squarespace, it's just a little gray box. Uh, People don't update that. It's so just put like anything other than that gray box.
something really simple that can just connect your branding a
just
little bit further, right? Yeah,
just go into Canva and just put your initials or just get a photo of yourself and up like just absolutely anything other than the default favicon. That's
right.
my first thing.
Okay,
The second thing is social sharing images. So when
yep,
someone shares your website on Facebook or on Instagram or texting or whatever, you got to upload a photo. Otherwise, it just includes just like a screenshot of your hero landing image on the page. It just kind of is pretty blurry. You can Google and see what different options are, but a social sharing image, if you do that, that also immediately just makes you look a little more professional and polished.
One of the very first things that I do when I'm consulting with voice actors and looking over their websites is I click all of these social sharing icons that they have, like where they link to all of their social medias. And you would be surprised. I would say probably 7 out of 10 times when I click those buttons, they do not link properly to their social media profiles. And I don't know why. It's just something that they don't think about, or, you know, oh, I just used this theme. And so the buttons are in the theme, but they don't know how to program them properly or something. Yeah. Yep. So I see that happen all the time.
All the time. Yep, that's totally true. And like speaking on like there's websites, the having your demos above the fold for voiceover actors, that's the number one rule I see everyone breaking is they like introduce themselves first, or they have a big hero landing image. I'm like, just you have to just give me your demos first.
Yeah.
It's okay. That's what people are coming there for.
It's okay if you want to have a separate demos page with more information or whatever, but when I land on your homepage, the very first thing I want to be able to see, those demos need to be there. All right, let's go to some questions. Here's the first one from Christopher. What colors help a website stand out? Currently about to retool my site. So is colors just about branding, or do you find that there are certain colors that work better than others?
There are different colors that work better than others, but colors are just all about emotion and feeling. So we instinctively have reactions to colors, right? So if you think of red, red's a really powerful color. It's passionate, it's vibrant, it's strong. It's also really kind of dangerous and sexy, and so it can be all these different things. So it really depends on what your niche and your genres are and who you want to appeal to. Because remember, your website is meant to be a marketing tool that appeals to your ideal client, not appeals to you.
Yes.
So like, I love the color purple. I would never make that my brand color. Because
as she sits looking at my Free Advice Friday background that's purple, and I've got purple everywhere.
No, this is purple and blue, and it's a gradient, so it gives it a tech feel. So that's a different. So that's a different choice.
All right.
Yeah, but this is a purple blue kind of theme. So like a gradient naturally gives kind of more of like a techie creative feel. So.
But straight up purple, you would avoid straight up purple.
Straight up, yeah. Like unless that's your niche and that's that's part of your branding. It's just a choice, right? It's not right or wrong. It's just a choice.
Is it
if you choose red, it's a choice. If you choose blue, it's a choice.
So is it one of these things because the color, like there is psychology behind this, like certain colors associate with certain emotions and stuff like that. So is that part of what your thought process is then?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I always ask my web design clients who their ideal client is, like what their industry or their genre niches are, right? So if we have someone who's coming up and they really want to do e-learning, green might be a great color for them, because that's really kind of associated with like holistic and health and nature and things like that, and education.
Very interesting.
So green's good. If you're doing business and corporate narration, some kind of blue.
Okay.
Some kind of blue, unless you're trying to like subvert the standard and you want to really stand out. Maybe you go for neon green or magenta, or oh hi, my cat's being ridiculous.
It's never a Free Advice Friday broadcast until a cat appears somewhere.
She's pulling my sweater off. Oh,
she just wants to be on the show. I mean, cats and YouTube, those two things go together like, you know, peanut butter and jelly.
I think she actually ripped my sweater.
Look at that.
Girly. Anyway, sorry about that, folks. Welcome to my life.
Welcome to live on YouTube.
She's upset that I'm not letting her sit on my lap.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So colors definitely play into it. My advice for people who are DIYing their own color palette is to keep it monochrome and only have 3 colors. So like really just black, white, and your accent color, whatever that is.
Okay.
Black, white, and red, black, white, and blue. But you can do a lot with that. Like you can also, if you want to go one step beyond that, but still keeping it really simple, pick your main color, like your brand color, and then do a really lighter version of it and a really darker version of it. And it's just all it'll magically work. But that's like your dark black isn't quite black.
Okay.
It's like a very dark version of your color. And then the very, very light version, it matches really well. That's the easiest way to do it. I do that all the time with my clients because it's easy to maintain and easy to do things with themselves. Like if they in the future want to do a pricing guide PDF, or if they want to do, add some pages and stuff like that, there's no way they can break that, just like that color palette.
I
There's
think
no way.
that's a big thing about this too, right? Is we're talking websites, but once you settle on whatever those colors are going to be that are going to be represented on your website, you want that to be universal across the board, right? It's just like how
Yep.
I am primarily associated with orange because, oddly enough, I've got purple right now, but I mean, everything is orange, right? My logos are orange, my studio is orange, like everything
Yeah.
I have is orange. And I'm
But purple and orange
associated with that.
are a good triadic
Yeah,
color palette
they work
thing.
together,
So
but
they work together.
you want to
Yeah.
make sure whatever colors you're choosing, that gets incorporated into the banner images that you put on your LinkedIn or your Facebook page or your Twitter, or, those get incorporated into your Instagram somehow. And so then there becomes consistency across the board, which I think is really important as well. Here's an
It's just really
interesting
professional.
one. This one comes from Tom. He says, what do you feel is better to encourage website visitors to contact you? Is it a contact form, or is it just easy to find contact info? I'm very curious what your thoughts are on this one.
I think both. I think not putting your phone and email on your site is a big no-no.
Yeah.
I personally hate a contact form. I don't know why. They just feel really impersonal. And so I would way rather open my email, copy and paste your email, and send you one.
I hate contact forms on mobile devices. I don't mind a contact form if I'm on a desktop.
Yep. And that's because,
it's ease of use, right? It's ease of use
because it is.
Not all contact forms. So here we'll get into. Now I'm having a brain fart on what it's called, but when you're on a website versus or on a desktop versus mobile, and it automatically resizes everything.
Oh, yeah.
Responsive design. Not all web forms work well in responsive design, and so it looks really great on your desktop, but then when you put it onto your iPhone and the boxes are tiny and it's like impossible to type, it just drives me crazy. So on my phone, I just want to be able to click on an email and have it open up, or I just want to click on a phone number and have it dial.
Yeah, and that's something else that I always do, is like make those things clickable links, because like a phone
That's
number,
why you got to know your HTML code.
You do. It's so simple, but there's all these little things you have to pepper through your site. So it's like having any links or your socials open in a new tab, so you're not removing the person from your website. You're not kicking them off. I also think it's really great for people to not just have a contact form, but have a get a quote or request an audition form. Make it a little bit more interesting, and have the person, like if they're actually seriously looking for a quote, have them list the usage, have them list, like the length of the terms and all that sort of stuff that helps.
Contact me is not a call to action, right?
No, it's really boring.
Request a custom quote or tell me about your project or request a custom audition. That's a call to action. And so if you're going to link to a contact form, that's, I think what you're saying is it's part of it's in the language of the form itself, right?
It is.
Have the form there, really, but give that form a purpose.
Right. And like, that's your whole purpose. Like what is the main thing you're driving your website? You want people to book you for voiceover. You don't want them to contact you. Like you want them to get a quote. That's Absolutely. The driving action that you want. So everything should be focusing towards that. So I would say include your email stuff and then get a quote.
Okay. All right, let's see. This one comes from Kid Capri. Best way to embed demos. Is it VoiceZam player? Is there some other player? Or you got a particular player that you use, or one that you found that works better than another? What do you think about that one?
So I use Squarespace. I'm actually currently in the process of switching my site over to a card website. So for those of you who don't know what Card is a really budget-friendly one-page website builder. It's $20 a year for hosting. Yeah.
Jeez.
And it's pretty shocking.
Yeah.
So I just built one for another web design client, because I was like, you know what, times are tough and people need just like a bare bones budget one-page site. So they're really great for people who are just starting out. But the embed portion is the challenge. So you either want to have some kind of embed player like the VoiceZam or something else. But like, see, that's a great thing, is like, okay, so you're paying $20 a year for your site. You're paying $10 a month for VoiceZam or whatever it is now. That's a heck of a lot cheaper than paying for a Squarespace subscription.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. And the other thing, so that's an interesting thing. I'm a fan of VoiceZam. I just don't know if it's I haven't used it myself because of the price point. I'm already paying for a Squarespace subscription, it's just another subscription, right?
Yep.
Like, it's just like, you know, like this industry is expensive when you start getting into it. And I think,
You're not kidding.
yeah.
I think the two most important things for me are, does it work? Does your player work across any device or browser?
Yes.
Because that's a big thing, compatibility. And
Yeah.
can I download your demos? Because I know from my own experience, every once in a while I will help a client with casting, and they might reach out to me at like 8 o'clock on a Thursday evening and say, can you help me find a voice? And I don't have time to email a bunch of people at 8 o'clock on a Thursday evening and wait for them to send me demos. So I'm going to go to demos of voice actors that I know, and I'm going to try to download them. And if I can't download your demos from your website, then you may have already missed out, right?
Yeah.
All right. What about this one from Carrie? It says, should you have an about page? My current one is too long, and someone said you're being hired for your voice, not what you did in the past. What are your thoughts on having an about page?
I do think you should have an about page section or page or whatever it is, but make it really fun and show your personality. Yeah. It's not a place for your resume. If you want to have a resume button, I say just have that as like a button on your site that links to your formal resume. Your About Me section is way more about sharing your personality, enticing them to kind of like you and want to work with you. So it's more about how you're so awesome, how you can help them do their project, and you're going to be fun and easy to work with. So infusing as much of your personality into that section is always what I try and convince my clients to do.
Yep.
And I write it first person to the person who's reading it.
Yes.
Like, as if there's one, just write to one person who's like visiting your site, because that's the interaction that people are having. It's only one person at a time who's experiencing your site. So make it feel like it's written just for them.
That's an interesting point too, first person versus third person, because I've always said for me, I'm the brand, right? I want people to feel like if they're on my website, they're interacting with me, that I did this, I wrote this, I'm talking to them right now, as opposed to in a third person where it's like, you know, one of my many assistants is here to, which I don't have. And so
Marc Scott is a supremely talented voiceover artist in Canada who blah, blah. Like, it's just, sorry, it's boring TLDR scroll. No one cares.
The other thing I think with the about page too is not everybody's going to read it, but the people who do, you want to give them something of value there. There obviously is a reason why they clicked over to that page. There's obviously a reason why they want to find out more. So I don't think there's anything wrong with having some stuff there. And I totally agree with you about, let your personality shine there, right?
Yeah. And a great thing to do in about pages is also like pull out little sections, kind of almost like a testimonial or like a quote.
Yep.
And so really break it up with a bunch of headings and then a little bit of text, because people just scroll and scan. Yeah. So anything you really want to stand out, make that a heading. Make that a really bold, easy to read thing that people will always guarantee get. Like, they'll scroll the About Me section, they'll read the kind of subheadings, and then they'll just start scrolling and they'll read the big headings, but they're not going to read the paragraphs.
I think that's something we all have to think about, is just how we consume content, right? We're scrollers, and long paragraphs don't work anymore. And so, all right, this is a fun one. This could be a very open question. How important is SEO and adding lots of words to your website just to drive up SEO? We could probably do a whole entire separate show.
That'll be next month. We'll do SEO. So SEO, so optimizing your site so it comes up when people search is a long game, in my opinion. It takes years to develop, and it takes hundreds of pages. So if you look at a site like Maria Pendolino, her site's hundreds and hundreds of pages. Her site's been around for over a decade.
Yep.
So there's all these little things that play into someone coming up on search. So I think for the majority of voice actors, I personally think that direct marketing, self-promotion, cold emailing, calling is going to get you way further than SEO optimization.
Right. Yeah. SEO is one of those things where you could spend $1,000 a month on it and still not necessarily be able to compete, because there's somebody else out there who's spending $10,000 a month on it. And, it would, in the voiceover space in particular, from an SEO standpoint, you're competing against Fiverr, you're competing against voices.com, you're competing against Voice123. And trust me, their budgets are significantly bigger than your budget is for investing in SEO. But
so you can invest in SEO. My advice is always, so if you want to do that, definitely go with a platform that has a blog built in and just start blogging.
Blogging.
That's the easiest, best way to do it.
It definitely work for Paul Stricorda.
Yeah.
All right. So here's another question. I mean, we talked a little bit about colors, but this is an interesting point. I'm in the middle of a rebrand for my website and social media. I noticed that popular branding colors for websites are different than popular branding colors for social media. thoughts on that. So are there like trendy colors right now? Like, is it like an HGTV thing where everybody's painting their living room a certain color this year, and so everybody's doing their websites a certain color? Or
Yeah, you'll always definitely have like color trends and things like that. So like 5 years ago, we had like a really big trend towards super minimalist black and white,
Mhm.
no color. Gray was huge. Gray was everywhere. Interior design, web design, everywhere. And now we're starting to see a big shift towards more neutral, earthy tones.
Okay,
So you're seeing a lot of tans and browns and blues and greens. So a lot of earth tones. Um, for social media, I think it depends on the platform. It depends, like if you think about the platforms, you can kind of get a better sense of like the age and demographic that they're aiming towards. So if you're primarily consuming stuff on TikTok, that's a very specific generation that consumes that content. So the styles and the color palettes that
sure.
appeal to them are very of that generation. I say just pick whatever brand color is strongest for you and use it across all your platforms.
Trends will
Don't worry,
come
don't
up.
worry about trends
Yeah, because
because
they're
being
going to
trendy,
change.
they're gonna change. Like the color of the year this year is magenta, like this really bright, like really strong fuchsia pink, like this berry, raspberry pink, fuchsia,
No,
whatever.
thank
So we're
you.
gonna see it everywhere,
Yeah,
right? We're gonna see it everywhere. But it also, if you do use that as your main color, it's gonna date you super fast.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about mobile friendly.
Mm.
And is it one website that you build that is responsive, that works across different platforms? Is it a regular desktop website with a mobile version of the website? Like, because we need to be
Mhm.
thinking about that, right? I mean, the
For
vast majority
sure.
of traffic now is happening on a phone.
You would think so, but all the data that I've pulled up from my clients' websites is that it's still predominantly desktop.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. About like usually the split is somewhere in like the 60-70
So I was
range.
gonna
So
say,
like
yeah.
60 to 70% of traffic is on desktop and the rest
Okay,
is tablet. I wouldn't even worry about. It's less
basically, it's
than 1% of
yeah,
traffic. It's not even worth it. Um, so I always design desktop first and then I customize and tweak it for mobile. So you have I still have a good experience. But honestly, all the builders, like I use Wix, Squarespace, Card, like they all have excellent tools for designing on mobile. It's not really a concern anymore as long as you make sure you take the time. I always recommend people design on desktop, get your site 100% perfect, and then go and tweak the mobile, kind of get it looking how you want, and then you go back and do a final pass over desktop because sometimes there can be things if you change alignments on things and stuff like that, it might shift. So you'll have to kind of make a call based on which one is more popular. So I always lean towards whatever's best for desktop,
right.
but that's what I do.
Okay, yeah. I I do think it's important though that that you at least look at what your website looks
Oh
like on your
yeah.
phone, right? Because
Oh, for
I
sure.
that's something else that I'll do when I'm consulting with voice actors from a marketing standpoint about content on their website or whatever. I will pull
Mhm.
it up on my phone and I will look at how, and half the time they don't even realize because they don't
Yeah.
have how often do you look at your own website on your phone, right? Like it's not
And
something
really,
that's
yeah, and really do a deep audit. Like go
yeah,
through and do a site audit as if you're a web designer. Like go through and see, are my fonts consistent? Is the sizing and the hierarchy of my fonts consistent? Like only I recommend people only use two fonts. Use a fun, interesting font for your header, and just pick a sans serif or a serif font for your basic. I recommend sans serif just because reading on screens it's easier. Some
I'm
people,
sorry,
if
was
you're
that
going for
Comic Sans you recommend for your website? That you built on
yeah,
GeoCities?
or papyrus. If you can use papyrus, that'd be really great. uh, no, it's like reading fonts on screens is really hard if it's very small and it
Yep.
has tails like serifs.
Yep.
So like if you look at your logos and everything, they're easy to read because they're sans serif fonts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that on
So I just like
purpose.
pick it. Yeah,
That was
you
complete
knew
fluke.
this. But even if you don't know it, right? Like instinctively, you just knew that like you liked that design better. It worked better for you subconsciously, right?
Okay, I know we're supposed to be talking about websites, but I know I'm not the only person that is thinking about this right now. That looks like a very
Oh,
impressive vinyl collection back there. Talk to us a little. I
yes.
mean, I can't be the only one watching this right now that is wondering about that vinyl collection. That goes
Uh,
on for days.
it's also all the cubes below as well. So that is my darling husband. He is an audiophile, and that is his record collection, which is I think think he's at like 1,600 now.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's
We got a lot
records.
of great music. Yeah, we got a lot of great music.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's a big audio nerd, and during the pandemic, he started an online record store because he worked in the hospitality industry, and that didn't go so well. And so now he's got a record store. So now he runs Resolute Records and ships vinyl to people. It's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah,
See, way to adapt.
I
All right.
know. Yeah.
Here's one. Any advice to anyone that's migrating their website to a new
Ooh.
host? That can be a really miserable experience.
Oh, it really is. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, you're just starting from scratch.
Yep.
So first thing, I would go into Google Docs or Word or whatever it is, pull all of the text off your site, pop it in there. And then I would go through, get the photos you can from your site. Sometimes you can download them if you have like a content area on it or something like that. Like if you're on Wix and you're moving to Squarespace, you can kind of go in and download previous stuff. And take your time to kind of reevaluate those, your images and your copy, as we call it, like the text on the screen.
Yep.
Really look at those just in the Word document and images on their own. And then Google image optimization, because the fastest way you can kill your site speed is by having photos that are way too big.
Way too big, yep.
And any of the like Unsplash or Pexels where you can get free images, make sure you're downloading it in the right resolution and you're resizing it. So you can Google all of this, but like you don't really want to go above 1920 by 1080 for a background image. That's the biggest it needs to be high def. And then for smaller images that are on your site, you can go smaller than that. So the smaller you go, the faster you're going to get loading.
That becomes a mobile-friendly issue as well, right? Because if you're
Yep.
if you're surfing on your phone and if you're using data on your phone and whatnot, you don't want to be downloading images that are 30 megabytes a piece or whatever. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and if someone's on a slow network for whatever
Yeah.
reason, they're not going to be able to visit your site because your photos are taking forever to load. So that's a really easy way to get your site speed to be faster. And then, yeah, I would take a look at the copy in the Word document, not on your website, because so many people make the mistake of going into their website, getting excited, adding photos, adding text, they're seeing it come alive. And it's really inspiring and motivating that way. But the challenge is that content dictates design.
Yep.
So your about page is going to be different depending on whether you have 3 paragraphs or 1. So your design choices will change based on that. So go in, write all of your copy, retweak it, like make sure you say everything you want to say, make sure you're getting all your keywords in, make sure you have all your images, make sure they're all optimized, make sure you name them something that's relevant to what they are.
Yep.
And has keywords, not just image 20661.
That's an SEO thing, right?
An SEO thing, yeah.
Yep.
So if like there was a screenshot of this, it would be like screenshot of voice actor coach giving advice on YouTube. Like that would be the thing or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's something like that. So yeah, name it something that has a descriptive element with the keywords in it. And then once you have your copy written, once you've got all your images, then you can go in and start laying things out, because your design choices will reflect the content you're trying to present.
So you've mentioned Wix and Squarespace. You mentioned Card as well. Do you have a preference? Do you recommend one? Have you found that one is better than another? One is easier than another? What do you think about that?
I think there's no perfect builder.
Right.
Just like I was gonna say there's no perfect mic, but there probably are perfect mics.
I don't know, my U87 sounds pretty sexy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, damn you, Neumann. I think there's no perfect builder. There's just what you need.
Okay.
So if you're just first starting out and have like less than 0 budget, just make yourself a site on Card.
Okay.
That's what I would do. It's not the most friendly. That's the challenge in terms of design. So if you're not very tech savvy, then my recommendation is Squarespace.
Okay.
That's the easiest one to navigate and update. And that's the one that I design stuff on for 90% of my clients, because it's so easy to update in the future. So like I build the site for them. I create a custom tutorial video that lives on their website on a private page, and they can make all the updates in the future.
Yep.
Like they don't need any other stuff from me, basically, unless they want to do some big redesign, they break something. But I've had no one have that problem. Wix is also great because they have a different kind of style of player. So if you're not really a big fan of the way that the audio clips show in Squarespace, there's only so much customization you can do with that. Sure. That to me is the trade-off for how, so Wix is like a very flexible editor, but the problem with that is you can do anything. So like you can do anything. So it's a lot. The learning curve's a lot bigger on
Right on.
Wix.
Okay.
Yeah. WordPress, I'm not a big fan of because I think it's the hardest backend to kind of navigate and get used to. So if you're not very tech savvy, I mean, people should be auditioning. They shouldn't be
building your
messing
website.
around with their website. like hop in, update your demo, go, but get back in the booth instead of like, where do I do this again and click and I have to update the security settings and it's just So I've used all of them, but it depends on your scenario. My recommendation is Squarespace.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask one final question here, and I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but a lot of people have the assumption that they cannot afford to have somebody build their website for them. And that assumption isn't necessarily based on anything other than I just assume I can't afford to have somebody build a website because they don't know if it costs them $500 or $5,000 or somewhere in between. So realistically, if somebody wants to get a website designed, if I want to reach out to you and I want to say, okay, Nadine, let's work on putting together a basic website, give us a ballpark range of what we can be looking at realistically, or if you can, so that people have a better idea of, okay, this is how much it costs. Maybe I can budget for that.
Well, I've got my prices right up on my website because
Okay.
I'm totally transparent. That's something that drives me crazy when I'm shopping around trying to find whatever service it is. And I'm like, they wallet. So I do mini card sites with really basic branding just to get you up and going for $600 US. I do a full custom Squarespace VIP design day with branding, online marketing, the full website build, all that sort of stuff for $1,200.
Okay.
And then if you want to do a multi-page site, that starts at $2,900. So that's when we start getting into like more established artists who are trying to kind of build some SEO and have a lot bigger content packages and multiple genres and things like that.
Now,
yeah, it depends.
I know I said that was going to be the final question, but then you just made me think of another question. So this is going to be the final question. You mentioned one page versus multi-page. I'm curious, when we're building a website, I mean, the endless scroll feels like the thing now, right? If you go into any social media platform, you're not clicking from one page to the other, you're just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Is there, from a website standpoint, does one make more sense right now? Is one better than another to have just multiple pages that you click through, a contact page, an about page, a demo page, etc.? Or is it that one page that you just scroll through?
One page is the trend right now. That's because we came from a place of you had an about page and it was just one section.
Yep.
And then you click a new one, that's a new section. So I've seen website designers out there who have a 6-page website, but it's 6 sections. Right. So you have to look at websites in terms of sections. So for a 1-page website, for me, it's 6 to 8 sections. So it's your demos, it's your studio, which I have like a description of your genre, your studio setup, your vocal profile, and then some testimonials and like some client images, like their logos, a little about me section, and then you have like a contact form or things like that. So like, 6, 7 sections. It makes a website feel way more robust. And for someone who's just starting out, you don't have a lot to work with, right? So you can really build a pretty great 1-page website and you're off to the races.
And have all the most important information that you need. That's awesome. All right. Well, hey, if you're interested in talking to Nadine more about this, if you want to have a consultation or look at, pricing, she said her pricing's right on her website, which I respect. I appreciate that you do that because I am with you. That can be a real frustration as well. So you can see getting a website built may be more affordable than you think. And I will say from a marketing standpoint, you really can't market without a website. Like you have to have it. And if it costs you $1,000 or $1,500 to build it, that could be the thing that makes you $50,000 a year because that's where you're directing everybody to find out more about your services. So the website is centerstage.design. And I want to make sure that people know that because not everybody's used to seeing these fancy new modifiers at the end of domains or whatever. So
that's a fun SEO thing. I get that a lot where people are like, oh, don't I have to have a .com? It doesn't matter at all anymore.
Yep.
No one even looks. They're just clicking your website link and they're going to it. They're not paying attention to whatever it is.
So don't try to go to centerstage.design.com. It is actually centerstage.design. Yep, that's the website. And Nadine, thank you so much for hanging out for a little bit and for answering questions and giving some insight into some of the different things that we can do to make our websites better.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks, Mark.
All right. It was great to talk to you.
Bye.
All right, there you go. So that's some website Q&A for you. Hopefully you've got some helpful tips from that. I see Brad Newman is hanging out in the chat here. Brad knows a thing or two about websites and upper level hosting. Thank you, Brad, for hosting VOpreneur.com, for hosting markscottcoaching.com, and for hosting markscottvoiceover.com. But again, check out Nadine's website at centerstage.design if you want to have a chat with her and find out a little bit more about that. So I'm going to hang around for a little while now, and I'm ready to answer some general business and marketing questions. I feel like it's been so long since I had the opportunity to hang out with you guys for Free Advice Friday and answer some questions. We've been having some guests lately, and taking some time off over the holidays and stuff like that. So it feels like it's been a minute since I've been able to sit here and do this and hang out with you guys. So again, if you have a question that you would like to ask and get answered, any kind of general business and marketing related questions, feel free to type that question into the comments. If you put a Q beside it, it will just stand out for me, so it's a little bit easier for me to find. But anything you want to talk about, business and marketing related, I mean, we can still keep talking some website stuff too if you want, but feel free. This is your opportunity to get some questions answered on Free Advice Friday. All right, so here's a good one from Carrie. How do you draw traction to the new website? So with marketing, there's active marketing and there's passive marketing, or at least that's how I would describe it, is active marketing or passive marketing. Active marketing is I'm going out and I'm doing the work. So I am actively going out and making connections on social media. I am actively going out and sending emails. I am actively going out and trying to drive traffic to my website. So every time I send an email, that is the purpose of that marketing email, is to drive traffic to the website. I want to drive traffic to my website. When I am making posts on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever, I may be including a link to my website because I'm trying to drive traffic to my website. So that's the biggest thing that I'm doing is actively trying to send traffic to the website. Passively sending traffic to the website would be things like possibly running paid advertising, something that's always running in the background. So you could be sending out LinkedIn ads, or you could be doing Google ads or something like that. And those are just running in the background. And the purpose of those is to ultimately send traffic to your website. So I think those are probably the two most common ways. I would say the most successful way for me, anyway, has been that active form of driving traffic. It's actively encouraging people to click through to my website to find out a little bit more about me. So that is the way that I am building momentum, and that's the way that I've always built momentum. From Jordan, Mark, I just want to say thanks for the recent interview with Ellie Schiff. It was a great reminder that we all have our own path to success in this industry. That was a really great interview. As soon as I saw his story, I reached out to him and he's like, "Are you sure? Like, you want to have me on the podcast? Like, you want me? My story's not all that interesting." I'm like, "Man, your story is awesome. And your story is going to encourage people." And that is exactly what has happened. So if you haven't had a chance to check out that episode yet, you can grab that wherever fine podcasts are given away for free, or of course online at VOpreneur.com. All right, here's a question from Greg. So we said website number 1 for marketing. What would rank number 2 and third, i.e. LinkedIn updates, etc. So you got to have websites, or a website, and you got to have demos. Those are the two most important things. You can still market your voiceover business without ever using social media if you have a website and you have demos. Your website is going to give you a place that people can find out more about you, and your website is going to give you a place to host your demos. And then by driving traffic to your website, we talked about actively driving traffic to your website, sending emails to people with a link to your website or whatever, then my whole hope is if my demos are great, that my demos are going to do the selling for me. And if somebody wants to scroll through my website and learn a little bit more about me, maybe read a little bit about my story, check out some of the clients that I've worked with, read testimonials that I've been able to collect from my clients, see samples of work that I've done, find out a little bit more about my studio specs and all of that sort of stuff. Those are the sorts of things that may ultimately tip them from checking me out to actually hiring me. So I would say you can't do anything without website and demos. Those are, number 1 and number 2, but I don't know that I would specifically say that one is number 1 and one is number 2. I think those two go together hand in hand. I think you need to have both of those things. Then from there, if you want to add social media into the mix and have a presence on any of those social media platforms, then that may be that maybe that's where number 3 comes in. But first and foremost, you've absolutely got to have your website, and you've got to have demos, and you've got to have great demos. Like, that's the other thing too. You're competing against the best of the best. Like, I know that when I'm reaching out and I'm marketing to people, or I'm auditioning through an agent or something like that, I'm competing against people like J. Michael Collins and his suite of first class demos. And so I know that's who I'm up against. I need to have the best possible demos that I can have on a website that looks really great, so that I can present myself in the best possible light, so that I can be at that same level as my quote unquote competition, as much as that is. It's those other male voice actors that are working on trying to get those same jobs. And so that's absolutely something that I need to be thinking about as well. So we know that we need to market. We know that we need to drive traffic to our websites. We know we've got to have a great website. We know we've got to have great demos. These are all things that are so important in order to be able to compete in the market today. That's the way that it works. And I think that being very strategic in the demos that you choose, at least initially, because look, most of us are not in a place where we can go out and we can get 10 or 15 demos done all at once at $2,000 or $2,500 a pop. And so working with a great coach, hopefully that coach is going to be able to give you some insight into genres that they think maybe are a better fit for you, or I think that this is where you should play right now. And so you go out, you get a couple of demos done, you build up a client base with those couple of demos, you get income coming in from those couple of demos, you set aside a percentage of that income that is coming in. And ultimately, as that account grows, that's what you use to fund the next genre that you're going to pursue, the coaching, the demos, etc. And so you build your business slowly over time. I mean, hey, if you got $50,000 to invest and you want to get everything done all at once, then great. But again, most of us are not in a position to be able to do that. And so that's how you build up slowly over time. But I think it all does start with having a really great website and really great demos. And I think the problem is, particularly on the website side, since we're doing website talking today, it's one of the first places that we try to go cheap, because there are options where we can do it for free or low cost anyway, right? Anybody can build a WordPress site. Anybody can go to Squarespace or Wix and sign up and build a very basic website. But if you have a very basic, very amateur looking website, what kind of impression is that making on your buyer? Think about it for a second. If you go out and you buy a $100,000 car, fancy sports car or something like that, and then you just leave it sitting in your front yard, or do you park it in your garage, right? You go out, you spend $2,500 a piece on your demos. You've got these amazing demos that you've invested a lot of money in, and now you're parking them on a free amateur looking website. And so some people potentially land on your website and don't even listen to your demos because the website itself has made an impression. We can argue whether or not that's right or wrong. And obviously we should never judge a book by its cover, but do we? Yes, every day. And so I see every single day voice actors who are trying to go on the cheap on their website, and I just don't think it's the right play. I think if you're going to take the time to invest in great coaching, I think if you are going to take the time to invest in great demos, then if it's going to cost you another $1,500 to have a professional website that looks awesome and makes a great impression and gives you a really great house, so to speak, for those demos, that's how you're going to make the money. Like, ultimately, that is how you are going to make the money. And so those demos are an investment that should produce a return. That website should be an investment that produces a return. So don't go cheap on your website. That is the first impression that you are making. So talk to somebody like Nadine and find out more about her services. And maybe you start out with, she talked about a $600 basic website built with card. Maybe that's where you start. And then maybe over time you eventually upgrade. I mean, I did that. I started out with a premium WordPress website. And then when the money was in the budget, then I went and got Joe and Karen from Voice Actor Websites. And now I've got a Voice Actor website. And so maybe you got to ease into it. But you definitely want to make sure that your website looks great, because it is the first impression that you are ultimately making. So always, always, always keep that in mind. If you have a question that you would like to ask, the floor is open to anything business and marketing related. I am happy to answer your questions for you on Free Advice Friday. As you are typing your comment, if you could just put a Q beside your comment, it just helps it to stand out because there's a lot of stuff going on in the chat right now. There are a lot of messages that are flying by. So just putting a Q beside your question makes it easier for me to spot it. So let's take a look through what's going on. Hey, Uncle Roy, welcome. Thanks for coming to Free Advice Friday. It was great to see Brad here. Who else is going on here? Welcome, Greg, Michelle, Jordan, Briscoe. Oh, Lisa. Lisa's hanging out. Hey, Lisa. Kid says, Nadine mentioned the Favicon. It's actually the Favicon, F-A-V-I. F-A-V-I. And is that something that should appear in the address bar when someone goes to your website? Yes, that's exactly where you are going to see it. It's a tiny little thing. It's like, I don't even, Nadine, I think, is still watching. She can correct me on this, but it's like literally like 10 pixels by 10 pixels or something. Like it's a very, very small thing. But it does appear in the address bar. And also if somebody bookmarked your website, if you look at your bookmarks, you can see that icon will often appear in the bookmarks. It appears beside it. So like if I look at my weather network right now, for example, there's a little circly yellow globe thing that appears. That's the favicon that she was talking about. So it's something that is relatively easy to upload, whether you're building your site through WordPress or Wix or Squarespace or whatever. It's just one of those little things that just adds another element of branding to what you are doing. And you can make it anything that you want. Christopher says, voiceover sweet spot. Should you mention that on your website, or does that have a negative effect if you're trying to grow in other genres? I think that's a good question. I think it depends entirely on what you decide that your sweet spot is. Is it something that you could mention? Absolutely. But depending on what that sweet spot is, it could also be something where maybe you create a separate page for that website. So, we talked a little bit about having the one-page website where it just scrolls versus having multiple pages on your website where you can click through. I am a big fan, and this is something that you can work up to ultimately. I'm a big fan of having genre-specific pages. So if I am marketing to an e-learning client, I'm not going to send them to markscottvoiceover.com. I'm going to send them to markscottvoiceover.com/e-learning. And when they land on that page, what they are going to find is my e-learning demo, a little bit of information about my e-learning work. Maybe they're going to find some samples of my e-learning work, right? And so it's only the information that is relevant to e-learning clients. And so that's what I'm a big fan of, splitting up your website like that. Depending on the type of sweet spot that you may have, maybe that is something that you could ultimately build out a totally separate genre page for, right? So if you become known for something very specific, a very specific type of voice or a very specific type of read that you do very well or you excel at, or there's a very specific niche market that you want to be able to dig down into and target into, that could be something that you could do as well. So I think how you handle it ultimately depends a lot on what your specific sweet spot is and how you want that to look. Obviously, we want to be cautious that we don't want to pigeonhole ourselves. If you are, if you do a great Morgan Freeman sound-alike, and that is part of your sweet spot, is that you are the person that has the ability to do the Morgan Freeman sound-alike, you don't want that to be the main content of your website, but you would absolutely want to have that information on your website because that could be relevant to somebody who is ultimately looking for that. So, hopefully that answers your question, Christopher. Uncle Roy asking one of the most important questions of the day. Where's the boo? Unfortunately, the boo is napping, so the boo will not be making an appearance on Free Advice Friday today. I apologize in advance. I know some of you still get excited about the opportunity to see the boo. The boo, if you can believe it, is going to be 2 years old in 2 weeks. Crazy. How is that even possible? That my baby is going to be 2 years old. That is blowing my mind. Guys, I want to quickly mention next week, Free Advice Friday, Andrea Hadhazy is going to be on the show. So this is one that you're going to want to mark on your calendars. I've had Andrea on the podcast before, and it was one of the favorite episodes that I've ever done, one of the favorite interviews that I've ever done. Also one of the most popular episodes that I have ever done. Andrea is an incredibly successful voice actor. She is also a head trainer with the Tony Robbins organization. Andrea gave away some life coaching sessions in the 12 voiceover gifts of Christmas. And so next week is going to be a little bit more, I guess we could say, psychology based. We're going to get into mindset. We're going to get into narratives, potentially talking about things like imposter syndrome and stuff like that. So really focusing more on the mental game, which is such a huge part of being successful in voiceover. And Andrea is also just incredibly inspiring, encouraging, and motivating, which no question is a byproduct of the training and the experience and that she has from working with the Tony Robbins organization. I give a lot of love to Tony Robbins because some of the books that I have read from him, Tony Robbins is the reason I have a retirement fund. He's the reason why my finances are in order, and he's a big part of the reason why my business is where it is today because of the things that I've learned from him and what I've learned from his teaching. And so to be able to have Andrea on, I'm super excited about that. So that's going to be next Friday at 1 o'clock. So make sure that you mark your calendars for that one. I also want to mention the latest episode of the podcast. If you haven't had a chance to check that out yet, how to find voiceover leads with Nadia Marshall. All kinds of insights into both finding leads for yourself and also working with a virtual assistant to find leads for you. Plenty of tips, plenty of actionable, practical advice. You know that's what I'm all about. So that's the new episode of the podcast that is, of course, available right now wherever fine podcasts are given away for free or at VOpreneur.com. So I got a few more minutes to stick around, guys. If you've got a question that you would like to ask, I'm just going to quickly scroll through and see. I don't know if I've missed anything. I try not to, but there's a lot going on here right now. There's a lot of questions popping up in the chat, but again, if you do have a question that you would like to ask, please don't be shy. Type it in the comments. Just put a Q beside it. Okay, here's one. This says, animation casting loves ad-lib in auditions. Are there genres where you should never ad-lib in an audition? I definitely think that I would not be ad-libbing in e-learning. I probably would not be ad-libbing in corporate video as well, just because generally those are very specific scripts for a reason. They're outlining a product, they're outlining a service, they're outlining a brand, they're highlighting features and benefits and all of that sort of stuff. So I definitely wouldn't want to ad-lib there. I do know that it can work in commercial. But the other thing that I would say, and I'm not a performance coach, so take this with a grain of salt. I always try to make it very clear that I'm not a performance coach. If you are going to do any kind of ad libs at all, which I do from time to time in my auditions, I would always do it on a second take. So I'm going to read the first take exactly the way they want. I'm going to follow the directions that they've given me. I'm going to follow the script that they've given me. But if I'm looking for a way to do that second take that stands out a little bit, that second take that maybe gives them something a little bit different, that might be where I throw that ad lib a little bit. And that's something that, J. Michael Collins has talked about that. If you've seen him talk about his strange little car, which is a workshop that he's doing, that's the concept behind that strange little car, is just throwing those weird, quirky little things in sometimes that can make it stand out. Kid Capri says, what do you think of VoiceZam? I love VoiceZam. I use VoiceZam on my website. I am a very proud VoiceZam affiliate. I think Bob is fantastic. I think the product that he has built is fantastic. I think it works great. I think it does everything that it's supposed to do. And so I am a huge fan of that. If you're interested in signing up for VoiceZam, if you want to check that out, I do have an affiliate deal with VoiceZam where you sign up and you can get a $25 credit when you sign up. There's the website if you want to check it out. It's voicezam.com/Marc Scott, voicezam.com/Marc Scott. And again, that is an affiliate link, but you will get a $25 credit when you sign up for the account. So check that out, voicezam.com/Marc Scott. Great point from Uncle Roy. Medical, no ad libs. Usually scripts have to pass legal, which that again can fall into, I guess I classified that under corporate and e-learning, but it is important to specify that. I did my first medical narration yesterday, guys, by the way, my first complex medical narration. And I may or may not have dropped some profanity in the booth. And for those of you that know me, you know that is not something that happens. This is a guy that does not get profane. This is a guy that language, generally speaking, that language does not exist for me. It does not come from me. But, man, yesterday, some of those words that I had to pronounce, I legitimately had I had my Chrome browser open, and I had like 40 different tabs open with pronunciations for all of these different words. And you want to know what's funny is that of the 40 different words that I had open, all of these, 16 syllable medical terms that nobody should possibly be able to pronounce. Nobody should be even trying to pronounce. You want to know the one that I struggled with the most was rheumatoid arthritis. For whatever reason, I could not, for the life of me yesterday, say rheumatoid arthritis. Now, I could say it today, no problem. Rheumatoid arthritis, not a big deal. But for whatever reason yesterday when I was in the booth, every time I said the word rheumatoid, it came out as something unrecognizable. I was not having a good afternoon yesterday. It was, I can look back on it now and think that it's absolutely hilarious because it was. I'm grateful that my kids weren't home when it was going on because they would have might have heard Daddy say things that they've never heard Daddy say before. But whoo, I just want to say, I always say God bless the medical or God bless the audiobook narrators. Because the stamina that you guys have, the ability to get through those audiobooks to do these narrations that take 30 hours to do or whatever, I have mad respect for you. It's not something I would ever do or could ever do. And now I add to that list, God bless the medical narrators, because what you guys do on purpose, like you choose to do it on purpose. Holy cow. I have so much respect for your ability to say those words. I was struggling yesterday, and that is probably a genre of voiceover that I will not necessarily be in a hurry to do again. I know I had more gray hair by the time. See this right here? That wasn't there yesterday. That appeared in the hour that I was in the booth recording that medical narration. That's what the woo. It was interesting. Janice says, LOL, it happens, Mark. Even medical professionals have those kind of days. Yeah, it was good times yesterday. I learned a lot about myself yesterday and my level of patience and tolerance when I'm in the booth and trying to record. I am used to just being able to go in and just do the thing. And yesterday I could not do that. Oh my goodness. God bless you if you are a medical narrator. I have so much respect for you. Well, guys, thank you so much for hanging out for Free Advice Friday as always. And thank you to Nadine. And again, check out our website. It's centerstage.design. See the different services that she has to offer. She said her pricing is right there. It's right up on the website. There's no secrets. So check that out if you're thinking that maybe it's time to reinvest and upgrade your website, or maybe you're building your website out for the first time. Maybe you need to blow it up and overhaul it completely. Check it out, centerstage.design. And again, as a reminder, next week for Free Advice Friday, January 27th, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, Andrea Hadhazy is going to be joining me. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun. It's going to be energetic. It's going to be inspiring and encouraging, and it's probably going to be a little bit psychological. There may be a little bit of therapy that happens on Free Advice Friday next week, but hey, we're voice actors, and if we're being honest with ourselves, we all probably need a little bit of therapy, and so that's going to be a really great session next week. So again, thank you so much for watching. As always, I appreciate you guys coming out. I appreciate you hanging out. I appreciate all your questions. I wouldn't do Free Advice Friday if you guys weren't here hanging out and joining in on the fun, and so as long as you keep coming, I will keep doing them. Whatever you decide to do this weekend, have fun, stay safe, and as always, go find some leads.